We thought this afternoon it might be interesting for some early recollections of how Kentucky was and how things used to be. If you have some early recollections, memories, or memoirs, why don't you share them with us? This would be an ideal time for some of the old-timers to join in this afternoon. Mrs. Bain-Taylor, you have recollections?
Yes, I do.
What recollections do you have? What are the ones that stick in your mind? Well,
this predates the flood, the 1937 flood. But this is 1929 when the American Legion National Convention was held here.
Mm-hmm.
And the veterans were poured in by thousands, and they had a lot of fun and a lot of jokes. They tried to embarrass everybody on the streets, and I'll tell you where everybody was.
Was that in Louisville?
Yes, in Louisville. And when they had the parade, though the town was just open to them, everybody took it good-naturedly, but surely it was fun. And the parade, though, was the biggest event that I had ever been in, and a lot of people had seen, you know.
How big was it?
Oh, it took 4 hours, I think, to pass 3rd and Broadway. And it came down from Oak Street, down 3rd, turned at 3rd and Broadway, went to 4th and Broadway, and turned on to 4th Street, and went right on down to the river, I guess.
Huh.
And the streets were decorated with flags and bunting. And the people were just applauding the veterans.
What do you think? Do you think that patriotism has dwindled in America since then?
Yes, it has. And I just wish we'd have more show of patriotism nowadays, but we don't seem to.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we will. We're still hoping.
Mrs. Taylor, thanks for calling and sharing your memories.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
WHAS?
Yes, I'd like to add a little bit to the 1929 parade.
Yes.
I don't remember the parade too well, but I do remember the veterans being here. And the thing that stands out in my mind is of course, the Brown Hotel was really plush at that time and very beautiful. But the veterans had, I don't know if there was a pony or a mule or exactly what it was, but they took that thing in the Brown Hotel.
Inside the hotel?
Inside the hotel, all around, and took it on the elevator upstairs.
I wonder what the hotel management thought about that.
Well, the veterans took over. There wasn't anything they could say.
All right, in 1929, we had something to do with the stock market, right?
Yes. And
did this parade occur before or after the stock market crash?
Oh, wow. I'm not that old. I'm old, but not that old.
I was curious from the standpoint of here, you know, we have perhaps a catastrophic situation for millions of Americans, and if they could still respond like this under that type of duress.
Of course, the crash, I heard about it and like that, but it really didn't affect me right then.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't old enough to know.
Mm-hmm.
And the parade, of course, I remembered.
Right. What's the name? I didn't get the name.
Lemoyne Sable.
Lemoyne Sable?
Uh-huh.
Oh, right, Mrs. Sable, I appreciate your call.
Okay.
Have a happy day.
The same to you.
Bye-bye. Ray Flam, you wanted to talk about 1934?
Yes, sir.
What happened in 1934 in Kentucky?
1934 was a very large veterans parade.
Ah.
And the veterans are, now I'm not a veteran. I'm a veteran, but I don't belong to the veterans organization.
Right.
But they were here and had one terrific parade, and it went through 4th Street also.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the World Series in St. Louis on Friday.
Uh-huh.
And when it ended, when saw Dizzy Dean pitch on Sunday, and I rode back with all the men who are all the veterans, and one fellow gave me a $20 bill to take care of him and be sure that he got off of the train in St. Louis. And that's the reason I remember it.
That Dizzy Dean, that was before his broadcasting career, right?
Yes, sir. Dizzy Dean pitched on a Sunday afternoon and lost 2-1 and jumped up and down, on the seat of his pants, just beating the ground when, I forget who it was with Detroit, hit a home run.
Was he?
He was leading 1-0, going into about the 8th inning. And they just that home run just fixed it up for him.
So you could see some of Dizzy Dean's personality coming through way back before his broadcasting days.
Yes, sir. And then talking about the Brown Hotel, I remember I shook hands with Lindbergh coming out the 4th Street entrance.
Lindbergh was here in Louisville?
1927.
Wow.
Yes, sir. He came out of he stayed in the Brown Hotel overnight.
And let's see, when did he make his famous flight? What year was that?
I guess it was 27.
27. So this was after that as he made his whirlwind tour of the United States.
That is right, sir. Yes, sir. And I was born in 15, but I shook hands with him, and I thought it was a great, great honor.
Was there a large crowd there?
Oh, 4th Street was blocked. And when he came out the side, they had the touring car, open touring car for him to ride in, and I don't remember a parade or if they had a parade or not. I think they did. But I do remember the most important thing was shaking hands with him.
Do you know if he flew in?
I couldn't say. No. You know, talking about flying in and talking about Lindbergh, we used to go to Bowman Field when I was a little boy and watch the mail plane leave on Sunday afternoon. It left about 4 o'clock. And this pilot would come out with his boots and his knickers and his leather jacket and his goggles and helmet. And the mail would come in, the mail truck, and they would rush over and dump it into this single-seater, and off he'd go. And we thought it was something else.
Well, you know, I wouldn't want to say it, but maybe mail moved faster then than it does now.
It could be so. Yeah, but you could depend on that plane leaving about 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
Right. You know, I was curious. Now, it seemed that in that time span and all through America up until that time, we've had national heroes.
Right.
You know, Lindbergh being one.
Right.
I wonder what has happened. We don't seem to have the national heroes that we once had.
No, I think the world, especially the United States, has just gone at too fast a pace. And they don't have time to think. One thing, their mind is busy with television and various things like that, where back then we had a crystal set.
Right.
And we listened to radio.
Right.
And there were maybe 4 earphones if we were lucky, and everybody had one earphone and listened to the radio, but we had time to think. And today we just don't have time to sit and reflect on what is going on, I think.
Ray, I want to appreciate your call.
I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheryl, you were talking about your father and his magic what?
Still.
Still?
Well, I think the story's kind of amusing.
Your father now,
Right.
in bygone years, of course,
Right.
and before the big Reformation,
Right.
worked or owned the still.
He had one of the biggest stills in the city, I understand, during Prohibition.
Okay.
And, as, you know, nobody could take a bath for like 3 months, something like that, because of the gin brewing. But there's a story that the still broke down one day, and he had to take it to the blacksmith shop.
Cart the whole still to the blacksmith shop?
Well, there was a problem. He couldn't cart it because the blacksmith shop was on the other side of the police station.
Uh-huh.
So the only way they could get it there without being, you know, suspicious about it, they put the still, the part that was broken, in the baby buggy. And of course, in those days, you know, people had 8, 10 children, so they kept the baby buggy.
Right.
And they had his little sister, who is now a very prim and proper lady. But at the time, she was 7, and she pushed the baby buggy past the police station because no one would think that a young, innocent child would be pushing a still to the blacksmith shop.
Certainly not.
No. And this is how they had to get the still repaired. They had to sneak it by the police station in a baby buggy.
What year was this?
I don't know. When was Prohibition? In 31?
Yeah.
It was a little bit before my time, so this is a second-hand story, but I have no reason to disbelieve it.
Cheryl, thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Mrs. S.W. Kellerman, you wanted to to speak about what event?
Yes, have you ever heard of Way Corrigan?
Of course, everyone. Half our staff, I think, are descendants, including myself.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, he was here in town in 1939.
In 39?
Yes, and they had a parade out Bardstown Road and to Bowman Field. And in the evening, probably in the day too, they would take up passengers in his plane for $1 a piece and would take you over the city.
Now, I've heard, tell me, was Way Corrigan, was he a football player or a flyer?
He was a pilot.
He was a pilot.
And he was flying, he was in New York, and he was going to go to California.
Yeah?
And ended up in England. That's why he's called Way Corrigan.
Well, now, there was a movie, I believe, about a football player.
Yes.
That had the same name, I think, or something. And that was where the confusion came on my part. But Way Corrigan was a pilot.
Yes.
And
he headed from, he was left New York and headed for California and ended up in England. Now, how that plane ever made it to England, I'll never know, because I was scared to death when I went up in there.
You flew in the plane?
Yes, my husband and I, we weren't married at the time, we were dating, and we went out and went up in this plane and took us all over the city of Louisville, and for $1 a piece.
What kind of plane was it?
I don't know.
But
it was wooden, and it was real rickety, you know.
Did it have 2 wings?
Oh, yeah. 2 wings and a propeller, and I think that's about all. But it was fun.
Well, we've had many famous celebrities visit Louisville, haven't we?
Yes.
Lindbergh and Way Corrigan. Well, son of a gun. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. We are soliciting comment and thoughts of bygone days in Kentucky, reminiscing a little bit, I suppose. Mr. Bryant, you wanted to reminisce about the 37 flood?
Yeah, I hadn't heard anybody tell you yet. Do you know, in the 37 flood, do you know where the used to be the old normal school up on Broadway above Barrett?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Well, you know where Barrett Avenue is?
Right.
All right, up on the hill there, about 300 feet, you could get in a, wait just a second. Tom, Miss Smith's at the door.
Now, Barrett Avenue is where the hospitals are now, aren't they?
Yeah,
up there?
Broadway.
Right.
Barrett and Broadway. You could get in the boat there, and you could ride to Shawnee Park.
In a boat?
Right straight down Broadway. Yes, sir. And the fellow was telling you about him taking a pony into the lobby at the Brown Hotel.
Right.
Well, he's passed away now, but I know a fellow that rode a boat through there.
Through the Brown Hotel during the 37 flood?
That's right. Through the lobby of the Brown Hotel.
Now, let me ask you, was there advance warning that the flood would be as bad as it was?
No, sir.
There was not?
There was not.
Had it been raining for quite some time?
Oh, it had been raining for a month.
Right.
It just kept raising. It got up to 57.3.
Above flood stage?
That was, no, the reading of the on the gauge was 57.3.
Uh-huh.
And you could ride from Barrett and Broadway all the way to Shawnee Park on that. Now, 3rd Street, you know where that is.
Right.
Well, you could ride out 3rd Street, and you know where Summers Herman's...
Right.
Well, you could ride right up past that in a boat. All that was underwater, see?
Business didn't continue
no.
during that period?
No. Things was... now, the main part of town down there around Main and Market and whatnot was higher, see?
Right.
And there wasn't no water on them.
But they were like an island, weren't they?
They were just an island, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now, you come out... do you know where Floyd Street is when you get out towards the L&N?
Right.
All right. I live up on Bar B, and I was up here, but I couldn't get nowhere. Our office was at 5th and Broadway, but it was under.
Uh-huh.
So I was getting telephone calls. I was at the Board of Education, saying
Right.
on call all the time. And I got a call here at home that they'd had an explosion at Halleck Hall. That's Manual now. And I went down under the hill where the expressway goes out here, 65.
Right.
Well, I went down just about there on the hill, and I wanted to get over to Manual, see? And there was boats there, but there was nobody to take me over. And he says, "Can you row a boat?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, he says, "Take one and go on." Told him my business, see?
Right.
And I went down Brandeis through First Street, and when I got down to Manual, the only way I could get in was to walk in on a pontoon bridge, see? So I tied up there and went in, and of course it wasn't, somebody had turned some gas on in the kitchen, and it had ignited and just blowed the lids off of the stove, see?
Nothing really severe,
Didn't
though.
amount to anything, no. So I stayed there for a little while.
How far underwater was that area?
Well, there was boats riding through First Street. It was about 4 feet deep.
About 4 feet.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit of water.
And right down under the hill here on Floyd Street, for me, I had a fellow that was working over at Manual at that time, Leroy Greathouse. He's retired now, and he lived here on Floyd Street. And he had a car there, and the water was about 18 inches over the top of it.
Mr. Bryan, I want to thank you for your call.
Okay.
Have a happy day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. We've had many famous American heroes visit Louisville, numbering among them Lindbergh, Way Corrigan, and Babe Ruth. Is that right?
That's right, Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth visited Louisville. What?
Not once, but several times.
Uh-huh.
But the ones I particularly recall, I went to St. X between 1932 and 36.
Right.
And the principal there at that time was a jolly gentleman named Brother Benjamin.
Right.
And Brother Benjamin was the discoverer of Babe Ruth.
How was that?
Well, he was taught at a foundling home there in Baltimore, and as you know, Babe Ruth was a foundling.
Right.
And in the playground, Babe Ruth hit one out of the play yard and broke a window.
Uh-oh.
And with that, he ran and got under the bed in the dormitory. And Brother Benjamin grabbed him and said, "If you hit him like that, you don't have any business running under a bed. You ought to run toward first base." And it was through Brother Benjamin's efforts that Babe Ruth got into baseball. But you know, he never forgot Brother Benjamin. When that Yankee powerhouse came north after spring training, he'd bring the whole team by St. X. Now, he did this for 3 years. And it was sort of a holiday. We'd go back into that old gym back there on Jacob Street that had the running track above.
Uh-huh.
And the Yankees would show up. And there was Gehrig, and there was Lazzari, and the Crosetti, and, of course, Ruth. And the thing I remember about Ruth most, he was built just like a funnel. He must have been a good 3 feet across his shoulders. He was the ugliest man I believe I've ever seen. And his head fitted right down on his body.
Uh-huh.
And his ankles were no larger than my wrist. And every night when he'd talk to us, we'd listen. And then when he'd finish, he'd go over, and a tiring man that he was, he put his arm around Brother Benjamin. And Brother Benjamin was 5 foot. He had a gray fringe and bald-headed. And when he put his arm around Brother Benjamin and, in effect, squeezed him a little bit, Brother Benjamin would just, well, he was in seventh heaven.
Well, now, how old were you doing this?
Oh, let's see, I was about 15.
You were about 15,
Uh-huh.
and for any young man about 15, of course, baseball is a large part of his life.
Oh, in those days, because in the summertime, you either were a good ball player or you were a good reader. You didn't have choices.
Right.
You played ball, but he'd take the St. X baseball team out to Parkway Field, and they'd play the exhibition game. But it was always a thrill to see Babe Ruth, and I just glory in the fact that I was just a part of history at that time, because he was undoubtedly part of our heritage.
Right, and you say Brother Benjamin was the principal at St. X?
That's right, yes, sir. So he came through for 3 years, and every year was always a delight, but that was Brother Benjamin's day. He was very well pleased to crawl back for another 364 days and wait for Babe Ruth to come through again.
Mr. Kellerman, thank you, sir.
It was delightful. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Discussing things that have occurred in Kentucky in honor of Kentucky's bicentennial anniversary. And Mrs. Hunter, you had an observation?
Yes, I said that I wondered if anybody had mentioned anything about the Clark Bridge being opened in 1929, because that was the bridge between Jeffersonville and Louisville.
Right.
And I know the American Legion National Convention they were anxious to get it done for them to, because their convention was in September.
I see. So they worked like almost overtime to complete that bridge.
Yes, they did.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and of course I'm 85 years old.
Uh-huh.
I was born in Louisville, but I've lived in Jeffersonville for many, many, many years.
Right.
But at the time I was married, at the time that bridge was being built, I remember so well because Mr. Hunter, I was married, and Mr. Hunter was a contractor, and he put a system in out at the Mangle Company, manufacturing company.
Put a system in?
Yes, that was a woodworking factory at that time.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what they do now.
Uh-huh.
But they put those floor systems in that factory.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that we finished it up, and we had to go back and forth on the ferry boat.
Right. Now, when somebody says the Clark Bridge, one does not think offhand or have the realization, but the Clark Bridge, before the Clark Bridge, there was no bridge.
No. Well, yes, there was no bridge, no bridge to go back and forth, to walk back and forth.
There was
the Big Four bridge.
Right, the train bridge, right?
That was a train bridge.
Right.
But they also had a walking place that you could walk.
Right.
Because I remember when that was built, too.
But there was no, for vehicles, there was no bridge.
No, but later on, the interurban went across that.
Uh-huh.
The train from Indianapolis went to Louisville.
Right. Now we had the only bridge across was the Big Four train track with a pedestrian walkway on the side.
That's right.
All right. How did they move the cars back and forth? Was there a ferry boat? A ferry boat.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. How much?
They used to have two ferry boats, the city of Jeffersonville and the city of Louisville.
How much did it cost to take a ferry boat across?
Well, I can remember that after I got out of high school, I worked in Louisville. And I started at Belknap, and I remember we used to go on the ferry, and we used to get 10 trips for a quarter. Can you believe that or not?
10 trips for a quarter.
Yes, good heavens.
Thank you very much for calling.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
This afternoon we are sort of looking at Kentucky's history past, and we have Mrs. Snowden with a memory, I think. Mrs. Snowden?
I heard the ladies say, that there was no bridges across the Ohio that you could go other than the
Big Four, as I understand it.
Big Four. Well, that is wrong.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The K&I.
Let's see. Now, the K&I was another train.
No, it had a driveway on the side.
Let's see. Similar. Yes, that's right. That is.
Still has it.
That is as you look down the river, we have the Clark Bridge.
And then the Big Four.
Then the Big Four.
Then the K&I.
Then the K&I. And that is correct. Was it in operation before 29?
Yes, sir. That was in operation before 1911.
1911.
Yes, my father passed on in 1911, and we drove horses and buggies across that bridge quite a few years before he passed on.
I appreciate that because I had forgotten about the K&I. In my mind, I was looking at the river and the bridge, the bridges across it.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten about that, but I have driven across that myself. It is a harrowing experience. Thank you, Mrs. Colson. Bye-bye. Charles Green, your reflections of years past in Kentucky.
All right, a couple of your questions about the interurban car, how they went over the Big Four and the K&I Bridge.
Right.
They were run by electricity, by trolley wire.
Ah.
And the ones that went to Indianapolis had two coaches. You had like a club car in the back was a little more deluxe, you know, and the front car was just seats.
Tourist.
And then, that's right, tourist thing. And then you had one running out of here, Shelbyville, Kentucky. You had one running to Fern Creek. You had one running to Orel, and I believe one ran up through Indiana, through Utica.
Right, now these weren't trolleys, though.
They were trolleys, yes. They were
electric wire trolleys.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Now, your Big Four Bridge was an engineering feat, and it was in the history books when I was coming up through school. France does not own that bridge. The people that own that bridge is Kentucky and Indiana Railroad.
Uh-huh.
That's the reason why they call it K&I.
Right. Listen, you mentioned the incandescent lamp, and I would like to ask you if it's true or if you were familiar with the fact that Edison spent some time in the Louisville area.
Oh, yes, I have been. Anybody that's been born in Louisville knows that, because if you look at the Courier, this morning's Courier, you'll see the house, a picture of the house that Edison lived in up on Washington Street.
Well, did he work, what company?
They tell me I think he worked with Western Union down here. Uh-huh. He was a telegraph operator.
Ah, this was before his...
before the discovery of the electric lights, sure. Sure. But...
well, it's been interesting for me, not being, you know, born in the Louisville area, and recapping some of its history this afternoon. It's been extremely interesting.
Oh, I'll tell you, I think you did a wonderful thing this afternoon, because... I don't believe you'll have to hold an audience very much, because I believe you have it. But this afternoon, I think it's especially interesting on kind of a dreary day, and people reminiscing. It's something like this should be really, the station should put it on tape for a long time to play it back to get a lot of interesting stories.
Well, it is being recorded, and perhaps...
the whole thing.
Right, and perhaps another month or so we might be able to play it back and listen to it.
Some of the things for this 200th year, I think it's wonderful.
Right. Mr. Green, thank you for calling.
Thank you for your kindness.
Bye-bye.